Tanshi Kiowa, hello, how are you all? Welcome to Homelands, originally broadcast on CFCR Community Radio 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 Territory, CFCR.ca. This is your favorite auntie, Andrea Letting DenehChos. My name is Andrea Letting, call me Auntie Andy if you like, and I'll be your host over this next half hour. I am part settler, part relative, and 100% ally and relation to everyone. I'm just me, not a card-carrying member of any Indigenous nation, but I am loved, adopted, related to, and accepted by many, rejected by a few, but haters gonna hate, relators gonna relate. I am blessed to have Indigenous relations in my family and secretly may love them a little bit more than all the rest, only because they're the first peoples of this land who welcome all the guests. But I also have some Irish and Scandinavian along with a little bit of mystery, and that's the way I was raised, strongly decolonial and injustice oriented with a big related heart for all. I most empathize with my Batoche Métis friends and family and that history and culture growing up, and as an adult I've continued to try to live that meal permits when that beautiful good life. So from the fringes of the sash, I situate myself as a relative and an ally and welcome you, my listeners, as brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, cousins in the Homelands. So let's welcome our relative tonight. So we have with us Deneh'Cho Thompson, who has been a guest before earlier this year from the University of Saskatchewant. So he is a director, actor, and playwright and displaced and dispossessed member of the Pedziki Nation. His artistic practice focuses on new play development, and his acting credits include the world premieres of Iron Peggy by Marie Clemence, Red Patch by Sean Oliver Harris and Ray's Calvert, and Thanks for Giving by Kevin Loring. As an assistant professor at the University of Saskatchewan, he oversees the Wichehtowin theater program, one of the few Indigenous theater programs at a Canadian university. DenehCho's research focuses on the development, naming, and centering of Indigenous pedagogies, new play development in various roles, and Indigenous collaborations while centering the values of reciprocity, respect, and reflexivity. DenehCho is also engaged in the restoring of personal family archives, focusing on healing, resilience, and Indigenous story work as a pathway towards the center of new works of theater. This is DenehCho's Saskatchewan stage debut called Fruitcake, put on by 25th Street Theater, which is a huge thing for them. This is kind of their first, in 22 years, I believe, their first kind of play during, the regular season. They're known for running the Fringe Festival, of course. So this is a really big deal, and we're very, very happy to have him here to talk about the play and various other things. So, and he is also excited to be working with a thoughtful and talented group. So thank you so much, DenehCho. Welcome.
Welcome. Always great to see you.
Yeah, so tell us a bit about your debut on the Saskatchewan stage. Tell us a bit about your experience in the play.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to be involved in a project like this. I think it's been, for me, I haven't seen a lot of stages in the last few years. I think that's a pretty common experience for us acting types right now. But it's just really great to be engaged in a show that is so meaningful to so many people for so many reasons. I really think that I prefer to work on shows that have a greater meaning or a greater intention. And so it's really, really great to satisfy that desire on stage in the coming weeks.
Exciting. Yeah, so it opens December 8th, I think, and runs for like a couple weeks.
Yeah, totally, exactly. I believe we close on the 19th on a matinee, I believe, and we have previews and official opening on the 10th, but okay. That's the actor talking. I could be wrong.
Sounds good. And where is it being staged
at? It's the second stage at Persephone. So right, there will be 2 Christmas shows in the building at the same time. I'd say check them both out. They're very different and they're both fantastic.
That is so awesome. Yeah. It's good to see Persephone being used and being open again. And yeah, it's a great venue. So yeah, folks, get down there. So I was reading a little bit about the play, and I understand it's a script from Heather Morrison, who's from Saskatoon here. And I think if I've got it right, the premise is that, and maybe you can fill me in a little bit, someone's mother has passed away, and the big issue is who gets what to do with the 137-year-old fruitcake, hence the title Fruitcake.
Yeah, I'd say that's an accurate a primer to the show. I think it really is the classic family Christmas romp. There's lots of comedy. There's lots of fights and broken Christmas ornaments potentially and things like that. And what family show isn't complete without a crying baby? But then, like it also really dives into identity, specifically trans identity, in a really meaningful way. I think it's definitely got some hard subjects in it, but I think it's great for trans stories with trans bodies to be on a main stage. That's always so important. And as an Indigenous artist, I think Indigenous theater has gone through that kind of kicking doors open kind of phase. And so I'm really thinking of myself, and I am speaking for Bruce Sinclair, who's another cast member. I think it's really great as Indigenous artists to go in not playing Indigenous pain and not showcasing that, but at the same time being able to be supportive of other artists who are doing that work that we as Indigenous actors often have to do, right? And so taking that stress off of myself to be Indigenous allows me a little more capacity to support the other artists in the room who are delving into their own personal histories for this work.
That's awesome. Yeah, so that gives us a little bit more idea kind of some of the themes and things that are going to be explored in this show. And I think it's Liv that's playing the character that's dealing with the trans issues. Is that correct? Or Liv Claxton?
Yeah. Oliver, fantastic human, returning to theater after what I believe to be like a high school experience, but returning now to the stage for the first time in many years, which is very exciting. Oliver's Oliver's great on stage, and I think we might be drawing Oliver back in. We might get another one.
Come to the dark side.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us a bit about your character, first of all. So is your character, so you kind of made reference to coming in as an Indigenous actor and supporting people who are, kicking open doors. So is your character specifically Indigenous, or do you?
I mean, the script itself does not call for it.
Yeah.
That said, for myself as an artist, I think it's impossible not to be Indigenous when I'm on stage.
Yeah.
Which comes down to a whole bunch of like conversations about identity politics and about visibility and all those kind of things, and also personal identity. But also, Bruce Sinclair plays my father, and he's a wonderful Métis actor, local fella, and so there is some indigeneity inherent to it, but we're not focusing on that, right? There's a couple little inside moments that we've thought about, but it's not really what we're giving the audience, and we're making the space for really trans stories to be the center of this.
That's really nice. Like it's nice to just to not just have to have an Indigenous play where it's focused on Indigenous issues and Indigenous themes and Indigenous characters, but just to have a story where there happen to be Indigenous people in it, right? Kind of like real life.
Yeah, and I think that's a really beautiful thing about how this process and project were put together. I think there was a lot of thought about who was in the room. And so yes, as Indigenous performers, we have a particular experience that provides us a context for allyship for our trans compatriots. But I think it's also, like you say, it's really nice to just have an Indigenous body on stage, and they don't have to be Indigenous, they just are. And that kind of representation, I think, is really radical still, unfortunately, but hopefully is becoming more and more commonplace.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So what else can you tell us, without giving too much away, about the play and kind of what the audience can maybe expect and look forward to, and maybe there's cast members, or
there's it just really feels to me like a family Christmas. There's so much work being done around specific family traditions and how Christmas unfolds and what people's expectations of Christmas are. So I feel very at home in the world of a play, during the good moments and the bad, frankly, because I think Heather and Grums, who's directing, and the rest of the team have really put together a tangible world that it seems familiar, and it seems very prairies, if I'm frank about it. Everything from the doily tablecloth through to the choice of what fridge will be on stage and all of that. And there's just some nice, like crossword nerds are going to see a really great crossword bit in there. I will say I'm excited about the turkey, but that's all I can say. And I managed to assemble an entire Christmas tree in less than a scene.
Wow, that's impressive.
It was a bit of a tricky thing to figure out, and I kind of cheat, I'm not gonna lie.
So that's kind of a skill you can take home. So so tell us about like the rest. How big is the cast? There's
so there's six of us. Myself, who plays Brad, who is the father to Sai, who is a teenage trans person. I have a partner, Katie, who has a baby. So that's three of us. There's my father, and then there's my sister and stepbrother, right? And so there's six of us, the grandchild, the grandfather, and two couples.
Okay, and so do you guys have an actual baby on stage, or?
Mum's the word on that one.
Okay. Yeah, funny story. I was just telling one of my younger kids that her oldest sister, like nearly 30 years ago, played baby Jesus as an infant, and they thought that was really fun, right? Because they had a female in the role, and yeah, she was live baby Jesus for the entire month of December. She'd been born in the end of September, and so they had this newborn on stage, and so she got written up in the they were like, wow, there was a live baby, she was crying, it was or he was, whatever, the baby was crying, it was amazing, so yeah, made the papers.
Well, I will say that a lot of conversation has gone into, and thank you to the mothers in the cast and the project, what is to be done with a baby on stage, right? So there's long conversations about motherhood and parenting and fatherhood going on in the room.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool thing, right? Yeah, getting babies on stage, live or not, right? It's yeah.
Well, let's like limit that to props or fully living babies. That got dark. I'm really sorry. Feel free to get rid of that part.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna have to edit this part out too, where I fumble around. How about tell us a little bit about how the program's going, wichehtowin, a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, I think there's some really exciting progress being made there. As you know, Carol Grey Eyes did a really great job of setting the program up, and the drama department right now is in a bit of a transition, which is totally natural for a department as some people retire and some new hires are made and things like that. So a revisioning of the department, or maybe just a visioning, we're articulating what we want to be as a theater department, which includes, I think, really important department-wide conversations about the wichehtowin program, right? And so we're looking at our course build, we're looking at how we track students, we're looking at our administrative practices, we're looking at the content we're teaching, and we're getting really excited about what more we can bring. And I'm really excited to say that we currently have a donor who is supporting the hiring of Indigenous professional artists to work with our Indigenous students on one of our Great Stone productions. So we're really trying to make that connection to the professional Indigenous theater world as well. And so we've got fantastic designer, costume designer Sam McHugh is coming in, and fingers crossed, a really fantastic painter that I can't name yet.
Okay.
Which is like, I mean, it's really great to be able to have the opportunity and the funding to bring in really top tier Indigenous artists is very exciting.
That's awesome. And it's just, I think it's so inspirational, right, for the students as well, and to make those connections and to see those possibilities, and to have that mentorship and leadership and role modeling and all of that, right? Like that's awesome.
Totally, and in the case of Sam's in January working at the Belfry in Victoria, but does a bunch of work at Stratford. And so just like I'm amazed at Sam's career and just to be able to demonstrate that to young students who don't quite understand, or I assume don't understand kind of the scope of what can be done as an artist.
Yeah, it opens up the doors to possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Wichita Bird on the stage today, who is of course one of the first graduates of the wichehtowin program, and just going, yeah, it's a good program. It has some pretty awesome graduates already. So yeah, back to Fruitcake on at Persephone this December. What's now you mentioned kind of the prairie flavor, and so Heather's script, of course, Heather Morrison is from Saskatoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Anita Smith is in it as well, correct? And she is
Anita's in it, and producing from 25th Street as well.
Yeah, she's kind of got two roles.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe tell us a bit more about what do you think the audience will take away?
I mean, there certainly is an educational sort of aspect to it. So one of my hopes is that people will be more exposed to trans stories and trans terminology, and just understand a little bit what microaggressions kind of look like and that kind of thing. I think that's a really important aspect of what's going on. But I also think they're gonna just have a great time. I think there's lots of really great stuff going on. There's fantastic acting. There are some really great jokes. There's at least one stage fight, and the decor, I think, will speak to a lot of people. There is a particular prairies decor that nods back to the 60s and 70s that I think the design team has really found on this one.
They've hit it out of the park, is what you're saying.
No, but it's awkwardly familiar. Like it's like my friend had that couch. Oh, these dishes, yeah, no, those were in my house, or like the whole set really is kind of like that.
Nice. They've kind of nailed a moment. So even
Mm-hmm.
though it deals with losing a loved one, it's still kind of a comedy that's exploring identity, is kind of.
Exactly, yeah, and like I say, it's really done a fantastic job of taking up the Christmas romp as a genre.
Mm-hmm.
And there's moments of misunderstanding that lead to quite a bit of yelling and hilarity, and we get to plug some really, really good jokes that I can't wait for an audience, because I really think there's going to be times where we don't know we're being funny. Because there's just so much good stuff crammed in there. And frankly, everyone on stage is fantastic at their job. So it's just really I think it's gonna sing once we kind of sharpen everything up.
Right on. Yeah, I'm excited to see it, actually. Yeah. So a little bit about kind of your path, for aspiring actors, and maybe Indigenous theater artists who are kind of in the beginning stages, and maybe non-Indigenous theater goers, things that they need to know. Kind of what suggestions do you have, or what stories do you have about your own? Yeah.
Solve everything in one question. Okay. I mean, for prospective artists, like future artists, especially Indigenous ones, the hardest thing I think for myself was realizing that I was allowed to be in spaces, and I was allowed to succeed, and I was allowed to be good at it. And I think that is, sort of a more and more prevailing thought process for youth generally, but I think anyone that has a lived Indigenous experience, or a lived Black or POC experience, queer, trans, like I think a lot of those people have been told by society they're not allowed to be in particular spaces for a very long time. So one of the biggest hurdles is realizing you're allowed to be there. In fact, you have a right to be there because you've been excluded. On the flip side, I don't think the groups that hold social power have the same right, right? It's sort of a restorative or reparations model that I think it. And I think pretty much for everyone trying to do anything, there's no harm in trying, right? Like, give it a shot. Doesn't work? Great. You know, you don't like that. You know, like there's so many people that tell you not to do things, or you can't have a career in that. You know, I think a lot of people I know that I would consider the most successful people in the world, they're working artists. You know, they have a huge voice and huge influence and impact on society. They get to do what they love. They spend a lot of time thinking critically about the world around them and engaging in meaningful ways in community. And, you know, some of them happen to make quite a bit of money as well. Not all of them, but, you know, I think it's a really great and opportune time to be an artist, because artists get to talk about the things happening in the world, and there are no shortage of things that we need to talk about right now. In terms of audiences seeing Indigenous work, or in this case, seeing trans work or trans stories, I think something that audiences have yet to fully grasp is that what I believe to be a successful show might not be the same as what Persephone believes to be a successful show, right? And not to say that either is better or more well-crafted, but for example, my show might actually be about building community amongst the local Indigenous community on stage and off. And that might translate into a different product than, you know, a main stage Christmas musical. And that's fine. So, and I see this a lot with critics. You know, you get critics who effectively their critique is, I don't understand it, therefore it's not good. Yeah. And I'm simplifying to a very base level that critique, but I've observed it a number of times in the critical world. And the best thing you can do as an audience member, the favor you can do yourself is, if I don't get it, that's okay, right? I don't have to understand, and I don't have to have the same values as the show, and it can still be good, even if I don't understand it. And I think we all struggle with that, right? Excuse me. Yeah, I think we all struggle with that because we live in a very individual world where we're trying to compare everything to ourselves all the time. So, you know, I guess just do your best. Try and see it for what it is.
Yeah. Try it. You might like it. Just do it. So tell us a little bit more about kind of what you love about acting and what you find most challenging.
I mean, one of the things I love most about acting is that it becomes the only thing I'm paying attention to for an hour and a half. I think we live in a world that we don't get a lot of time to rest or be gentle with ourselves or focus on one thing. And so I really appreciate going in and being like, there's nothing else I can think about or do about anything for an hour and a half. I also really love exploring, right? I think theater is one big experiment. All the time you're trying stuff, some works, some doesn't, and you keep trying to make more and more of it work. And I love that as an actor. You get in there and you start like, bodies are neat and voices are neat and ideas are neat, and so you get to like kind of manipulate yourself in ways to really try and discover as much as you can. And I've always naturally been a reflective person, a self-reflective person, and so it's great to just go in and do that professionally. And it's great to connect with people, you know, audience, other cast members. It's just really nice to like have honest moments with people. That's another thing we avoid more and more in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing like the shared experience, right? Of being in a theater together with live bodies, everybody's watching the same thing. It's got our attention. It's telling us a story. We're going through an experience and a journey together. And
Hmm.
yeah, and it's so organic and it's different every night, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's something magical about it.
And I think there's like, to contextualize it in a way, in a shared space like that, um, my voice reaches out and actually affects your body, right? Like the vibrations of my voice carry out and vibrate your ears and your body. And so we actually share connections. I'm also really into like neurons and things like that. And so like, what are the experiences that I'm having that you're replicating in yourself anyways, right? So I think it's hard to replicate that kind of stuff via Zoom or in television,
Mhm.
or in sculpture. I think there's something unique about theater that I really I can't seem to step away from it.
Yep, it's a magnet for many of us. So so just kind of got just like a couple of minutes left, but it's kind of flown by. But tell us about one more thing, maybe about a few more things about your character, Dave. Like what was interesting for you in exploring his world and who he is and things that fit and things that were a stretch and that kind of thing.
Well, I don't know who Dave is, but Brad.
Brad, sorry, Brad.
Yeah,
Like Dave.
4-letter Anglo man name. I get it. Yeah, Brad. You know, it's really interesting because as Brad, I feel both like I'm experiencing childhood and I'm experiencing parenthood at the same time. And what I mean by that is there are so many things that Brad says or does that are very well intentioned, that goes so poorly. And he really, like, as I've been exploring him, I believe he really is trying to do good. And he keeps doing a lot of bad. And then, like, I see some of my family in that. I see some of my friends' family in that. So it makes me feel like back to when I was a kid, but it also makes me feel like, that sensation of like, oh, I really screwed my kid up. Like those kind of like really complicated feelings. But like, outside of all of this mess, I think Brad is probably a really fantastic human. He's dealing with grief. He's managing his father's grief. He's got a kid that's come out. It's a lot for him. He doesn't deal with it properly, but he is, I think, doing his best, which is hopefully what we all do, right?
Yeah, very relatable.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Well, I guess we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. And merci to our relative tonight, Deneh'Cho Thompson, who is talking about the play Fruitcake running at Persephone this December. Go out and see it. Ni wagamaganok, all my relations. And believe me, we are all related, so act like you've got relations. This is Auntie Andy signing out from Homelands, originally produced on CFCR Community Radio 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 Territory, CFCR.ca. You can find us on Twitter at Métis Homelands, email métishomelands@gmail.com, and this episode will also be viewable on our YouTube channel, Homelands, so subscribe today. Marci, thank you for listening, and Akoshi Kawapa Matina Waomina. That's all. We'll see you later.